Hey folks, Matt McQueenie, Mix Minus Podcast. It's Wednesday, August 23rd, the year 2017. Only one more week, before we head into September. I am back from a little one-night jaunt. My father, Jim McQueenie, threw out the first pitch, the ceremonial first pitch, at the Trenton Thunder game last night, Tuesday. The Trenton Thunder are the AA affiliate of the New York Yankees. They are apparently dominating things in that AA league. They were playing the Portland Sea Dogs, which are the AA affiliate of the Boston Red Sox. And my dad had the opportunity to throw out the first pitch. It was the first time in his life he ever had that chance. And it was actually pretty hilarious to see how much it meant to him. It was as if he was a kid going to his first baseball game. He showed up with his mitt. His mitt was actually his brother's mitt, his brother John, who was, my dad was the oldest, John was the next oldest, and unfortunately John passed away at the age of 52 in, I believe, 2003. And he was so close to my dad, and it meant so much, and he was so sad when he lost him, because that was sort of his soulmate. They would always play baseball together growing up. They would do everything together. My dad was a righty pitcher. Johnny was a lefty pitcher. And there's some sentimental things with my dad, sometimes that are kind of surprising, but this was one of them. And when he showed up at the field, because my brother and I went down, my brother Mike, who's 31, when we went down there, we met up with him, and he was holding a glove there, and it was an old leather glove, and it was Johnny's glove. And as I said, Johnny was a lefty, and my dad's a righty. And it's not like my dad was going to be having a catch with anyone, because when you throw out the first pitch, you're giving it, you walk out to the mound or in the grass right in front of the mound, and then you throw it right there to the catcher. And I do have to give him this. He did throw a perfect strike, which was impressive. Very much like George Bush in the 2001 World Series between the Yankees and the Diamondbacks in that first game back in New York City in that World Series, obviously right after September 11th, right down the middle. This one did not quite have the same stakes, but my dad was so overcome by how much he was looking forward to doing this. And again, he was like a kid, but it was neat. We walked in through the bowels of the stadium. We came up through the visitors' dugout, and we got to be on the field there, and he got up there and threw one, and he was wearing Johnny's left-hander baseball glove on the wrong hand for my dad, was wearing it. But it was that sentimentality. I guess it just meant that much to him. And we almost planned for this to kind of be like a mini spring training. Anyone who's listening to this podcast, I've gone on and on about this. For going on something like 20 plus years, my dad, me, it was always us two. Sometimes my brother Mike, sometimes other siblings, my brother Tom, my sister Maeve. I don't think Maeve ever went. It was kind of a guys type of deal. We would go down to spring training in Florida, and we would go from pretty much Thursday to Sunday, nice 4-day jaunt, and you get in a lot of baseball, and you get in a lot of good dinners, and you get in a lot of exercise, you get in a lot of beautiful weather in the sun down there, and it's just a perfect vacation that we always knew was coming around March, around spring training time. And it was something that was summarily dismissed in the last handful of years after I had my son Liam, who will be coming up on 3 in November. And then my brother Mike had his daughter Eloise about 5 months after Liam, so she's about 2.5. She'll be 2.5 pretty soon. And then my brother Mike just had another daughter, Madeline, who's, I think it was in May. You lose track of time there. But ever since these new entrants came into the family, we cannot go on this spring training trip anymore. It's just too hard. The logistics of being a parent is very hard. It's not hard, it's great, but it's very difficult to do things like that and to leave one of the spouses behind. And in the case of my wife, Melanie, she had been somebody who had started going on this spring training trip with us for 4 or 5 years, I think, at that point, before Liam came. The last time we went, she was actually pregnant with Liam. And it was Derek Jeter's last spring training, because I remember the way we announced Liam to our parents. They were, of course, the first ones we announced. We came up with little cute things to do. And the one for my parents, we met them at a diner on Route 23, I think in Pompton Plains. and we set up a fake menu, and I think we had something like egg McQueenies, like egg McMuffins, and it had all kinds of baby stuff. That one was for my mom. And then I took an ESPN headline, and there's actually a way where you can take a website, and it's called firebugging, where you can actually manipulate the code on the website, manipulate the text on the website, and take a screenshot of it or print it. And then you've almost got your own version of the news, the fake news, if you will. And we changed the headline, I believe, in a story about Derek Jeter's last spring training. We changed the headline to be Baby McQueenie to be present at Derek Jeter's last spring training. And we said Baby McQueenie, and I don't even know if we know the sex at this point, but we were surprised with my son. So we did not know it was a boy. We did not know it was Liam until the minute he came out and we could see the sex. So we just had this headline, Baby McQueenie coming to last spring training for Jeter, changed some of the text in the body, and it was a nice little thing. Handed it to my dad, and that was how he found out. So that was the last time we went to spring training. And it's something that nags at me because I loved this trip so much. And you could say it's selfish. You could say it's just a rewarding trip, whatever it is. But the politics of going to it just became absolutely impossible because I can't just now go with my dad, because now I'm leaving my wife, who was somebody who got to go on this great trip for many years running, understands how much fun it is, how great it is, how relaxing it is, how rewarding it is. And now I'm supposed to go, and now she's supposed to pick up the slack at home with our son, a toddler going on 3 years old, and she's going to do that for 4 days, and then she's going to have to figure out how to get him to school, how to make sure a nanny's coming earlier, how to make sure her mom's around, my mom's around. It's a lot of logistics, and you pick and choose your battles in marriage when you're a parent as well. There's only so many things you want to push to do because you're going to end up paying for those things down the line in a way that might just not be worth the short-term gain of going, if you know what I mean, if you catch my drift. And so spring training, just like that, was nixed. We haven't gone in many years, 4 years now, and or maybe 3, 4. But we haven't gone. And it's been a sad thing because that was really a routine we looked forward to. It was a great bonding experience between the men in my family. It was a way to catch up, to have a very consolidated running conversation through the trip that carried over into good beer and good wine and good steaks and good dinners every night. It was something we really looked forward to. And we got a lot done, a lot of discussions done. We caught up on a lot of the year because how often do you really talk to your family meaningfully during the year? There's so much going on. There's only so many ways to have that one-to-one contact. And so this was our chance, and it's gone by the wayside. But it brings us back to this. So my dad was going to be throwing out this first pitch at the Trenton Thunder game, and it was very important to him to have us there. Again, there was a weird kind of sentimentality to this exercise for him, and it was very, very important that my brother and I were there. And so for a couple of weeks now, he really lobbied. He put a lot of lobbying effort. He had my mom call us. It was very important to him that we went. And when I brought it up to my wife, she was not happy. She was very upset. She wanted to go. At first, I thought maybe we could bring my son because at first I thought it would be an afternoon game and maybe it would be close to the weekend and maybe we could turn it into that kind of trip, which I don't mind. That would have been fine. But as it got close to close to the event, it turned out to be a night game in Trenton, about an hour and whatever, maybe an hour 15, hour and a half from where I live. You're already into bedtime at the point where this game was going to be taken off. How is this going to work? It's the middle of the week. I'm coming from work down there. I went with my brother, again, who actually only works 2 buildings down from me in Newark here at a law firm. So he drove us down, and then he drove us back to work in the morning, which was kind of fun. Weird little routine. To be coming to work from somewhere else, so that was fun. But it was just something logistically that was just it was splitting my brain fibers. I couldn't figure out a way to make this work, and partially I didn't want it to work. I didn't want my son to give up sleep, give up his normal routine, especially now, which I'll get into. He's potty training, and we had put him into a toddler version of his crib where you take one of the walls down and you put up this little toddler barrier to make it more of a transition to a typical bed. So there was a lot of things changing in our lives, which made this even harder. And anyone going through potty training understands how hard things get with that act. And so I kind of kept punting this thing down the road. I kept thinking it would just work itself out, because in life, that always did tend to be the case. But when you're only speaking for yourself, it's easier for that to happen. When you're speaking for a family and others, and female spouses who tend to be much more prepared and much more scheduled than you are, much more plan oriented, I'm more seat of the pants, it gets hard. And it actually gets a little anxious and a little bit, it starts to wear on you a bit. And so it really got down to it, got close to it, and I just said, oh man, I got to go. And I kept punting to my brother, because again, he's got 2 kids. He's got 2 kids who are under the age of my son. And so I figured, I kept saying to my wife, let me see if Mike's going to go, because if he wasn't going to go, it sort of gives me cover to say I can't go. But the minute he goes, it sort of gives me no cover, and it gives, if he can go with 2 kids, when having 2 kids at home, I can surely go with 1. And again, I knew how important it was to my dad to go to this. There's not many things he asks of us to do, and you could just tell it's important. I would want him there for my important things. I would want family there, and you just kind of you got to kind of have a singular focus and push through and go. And so we came down to it, and I just made the executive decision. My brother's going, I got to go to this. I'll accept what comes, whatever the case is. And we ended up doing it, and it ended up kind of summoning the same feelings we had for spring training. For one night, it was like spring training again. We have the beautiful weather. Here it's obviously in August, whereas in Florida it's in March. Same kind of weather though, at times, on the hotter times of March. And we got in the car and we met my dad down there at the Trenton Park, right on the lake front. I think it's called Arm & Hammer Park. And we went out there on the field. He threw the first pitch, and then my brother and I thought we would actually stay a bit. My dad was kind of singularly focused on getting out of there and getting to dinner. We were going to be staying at a nice hotel called the Westin Forestal in the Princeton Forestal Village. It's a sort of offshoot on Route 1 away from the main town of Princeton. It's sort of on a highway there, and it's a little made-up Potemkin village. It's actually the same place where my wife and I went for our 6th anniversary. This last New Year's Eve, we went to a hotel in this same little forestal village, and then we went to the Ruth's Chris Steakhouse for dinner, as we like to do on our anniversaries. Being New Year's Eve, I like to find a place that's off the beaten path, but has a great hotel, good spa, and a good dinner spot, and we will do that, because you're going to be kind of locked into a place. You're going to be Ubering, or you're going to be walking, and then you're going to see the ball come down later. So really, we don't have to be in New York. We don't have to be in Philadelphia. We don't have to be in a big city. We like to be off the beaten path and just spend time with each other. But we were at the other hotel in here last night, as I said, with my dad and my brother. Nice little hotel, and we got in there about 7:30, back to the hotel, because we did not even see one pitch of the game. Again, I feel badly about that. I kind of wish we saw an inning or two, had a beer maybe, but it wasn't going to happen. It's okay, you move on. So we got there, and then we settled into the not PF Chang's, we settled into the Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and just had a glorious dinner. I set myself up with one of those deals where I didn't eat more than the one meal leading into that, so I would be extra hungry. So I worked out in the morning, left home a little later so I could be home with Melanie and Liam a little more, since I wouldn't be home later. And I worked out, and then I kind of went on my way. I got a breakfast sandwich from my favorite place, Cloveberry, and I ate that sometime around 12:30. So I was trying to stretch my day, so I would be extra hungry for that great steak dinner. We settled into the Ruth's Chris, and we just had a nice time. I love being around my son. I love being around my wife. My brother said the same thing. I think my dad thinks the same thing. Who knows, though? You're married so long. But it was just so nice to be unencumbered. And I can't tell you, it's probably been years. It's probably been spring training since we have been in that situation where it's just my dad, my brother, and I. I mean, years. And it was comfortable. You knew the kids were safe at home. Our wives were kind of giving us the cold shoulder and not giving us much info because they just were not happy about it. This is the difference between men and women. The male would take on the role of being with the child, being at home, so that the female spouse could go and do their own thing. Whereas the female spouse gets a little more spiteful, a little more jealous, and they take it out on you. But you kind of, it is what it is. It's a yin and a yang. So we just settled in. Great night. A couple of bottles of high-priced wine, some petite fillets, some cream spinach, shoestring fries, mashed potatoes, all of it fantastic. Maybe an extra glass of wine, nice lava cake for dessert. Just a good time, good discussions, good catch up on life. Outside of the normal venue when our wives and families are around, just back to basics. Just a good bonding experience. It was a lot of fun. We headed back to the hotel, and we got a couple more rounds. I really only did one more. My brother can drink a lot better than I can, and I had quite a bit. I just don't have my tolerance isn't, I don't need it to be high, to be honest, but I had one more, and it was just, I had a good IPA there. They had a High Ally from Cigar City, which is a fantastic IPA. That's pretty good to be on tap there at a hotel bar, but had that. My brother got another round. I just gave him that one. I couldn't have another. You reach that point of saturation where if you put one more down, you're now going to be sick. And I was even still, with what I had, waking up in the morning going, what did you do, you idiot? It's Wednesday morning, and look at what you drank that you feel this not great. I wasn't totally hungover or anything. It was just, you're off. You're kind of sweaty. You got a little bit of a feeling of the flu, right? But it was a lot of fun. It was great. My brother and I just kept going, talking later into the night. I think we went up around midnight. I stayed in a room with my dad. My brother, again, who has the 2 kids and has had zero time to himself whatsoever. And you sign up for that as a parent when you have all those kids that you got to take care of, who have no chance of taking care of themselves. And you have a wife who just had a baby, and it's a lot of work being a parent. He actually got his own room. He was like, screw this, I'm just going to get my own room. So he did that. And then we woke up and came up to work today. It was great. But as I said, there was some tension in my household doing this, going to this baseball game, going to a nice dinner. You almost have to say, I always remember on the road when I was with the Nets on the road, and one of the producers of the television station that covers the Nets, he said, remember, McQueenie, when you call home, you tell your wife, and at the time I wasn't married, but he said, we tell our wives, it rained and we miss you. No matter what the weather was and no matter what activities we're doing on the road, that's what we say. So it was important to me. I kept saying, guys, no pictures, no pictures. We can take some pictures at the park. We did put one up with my dad, brother, and I, and then the mascot. I don't know what he was, some kind of bird, the Trenton Thunderbird. Maybe that's what it was, a Thunderbird. So we took a nice there, but I was like, no pictures at dinner, no pictures of us having a good time. This is a SEAL Team 6 mission where we're having a great time, but no one's going to know about it. And that was fine. That didn't get out there. Again, honey, it rained and we miss you. That was the big term of the day. But there's a lot of tension because there's a lot going on in my household as it relates to my son, Liam. We decided, with my wife being a teacher, having the summer off, we decided it's time. Maybe it's a little early, but it's time to potty train him. We tried potty training him, I think, around the New Year, so it was real early. But, you read these books and people say, oh, I potty trained my kid in 2 or 3 days at 18 months, and he's been potty trained or she's been potty trained the whole time. And you start to read this stuff and you go, you're full of shit because it's hard. And kids at that age often, they're not even making a connection of what's going on. But potty training's really tough. And so we decided... my wife decided she's going to be home through the day with him. She can reinforce things. She can be there to do the rewards, the carrots and the sticks. She can oversee that, give him a good head start, and then others can oversee when she goes back to school. But we also wanted to wait till our vacations were done so that we're not stuck in our hotel room trying to potty train a kid, because potty training is intense. It is a singular focus. It's actually kind of awful because you can't do anything with your life because you got to focus on this kid so much. And it's just it's a lot of difficulty to kind of work through. And so we decided, let's do this. There's really only 1 or 2 more weeks at the point where we started before she was going to be going back to school. She figured it's time. He's been going to camp 2 days a week. So once his second day of the week was finished on Thursday, she figured Friday I'm going to start this. And then Saturday, Matt, you'll be home. Sunday, you'll be home. So I'll start it. My mom will come, Melanie's mom, that is. And then we'll carry it over into the weekend. And then hopefully he's somewhat potty trained. And then we'll reinforce it as we go into the week. Maybe we'll push his summer camp days, the 2 days later, into the next week to bring some continuity there to finish the job. It's been hard. And on top of it, earlier that week, that Friday we started, earlier that week, that Monday, we decided about the bed thing. We took down the one wall on the crib, and then we bought the toddler bed insert part, and I set that up, put the insert in. And for a couple days, he was doing okay with that, but then also he was getting out of bed constantly. The kid has freedom for the first time. He's going to use it, whether he wants to or not. He's exhausted, but there's an opening. He's going to leave. He's going to open his door. He's going to come looking for us. And the very act of doing that means he's not sleeping. It means he's focused on something else. And so we were having hard nights. It was like having a newborn again, because he would wake up screaming because during the day, maybe he wasn't napping anymore. This is a kid who could nap 2 to 3 hours on a given day. And so 2 out of 3 days, he didn't nap at all, because once he started getting out and knew he could, it was the focus of all of his efforts was to get out of that bed and to look for us. And then when you don't get that nap during the day, at the night, we're putting him to bed earlier, but then he's getting these little rhythms, these circadian rhythms, which are saying to him, wait, you went down earlier, I'm getting up. So his whole body's fighting it. And then he'd have these screaming fits. We'd have to go upstairs and we'd have to, nurture him back to sleep. And then you'd go to bed, and then you'd get the screams at midnight. And then my wife would get up, and then I offered to just go in there and kind of be with him, because she has a lot of anxiety when things start going south. I think we find this with a lot of our female companions. They tend to carry more anxiety. It might be because of all the things flowing through their bodies that we don't have flowing. We pretty much have testosterone and not testosterone. And then based on parts of the month, based on certain situations, they just have substances flowing through them that change all complexion internally. And so I try to offset this by going in and being with my son. But even when I'm with him, I'll be there 20 minutes and it's waking me up in the middle of the night. And then you're going back to bed, and then maybe he's coming. It's like a ghost. You hear those feet, and then he comes into your room again, and you got to walk him back and walk him in. There's no continuity of sleep. And once you start cutting sleep, now it's bleeding into your day. Now you're snippy. Now you're needing more coffee. Now you're not a happy person. Because remember, sleep deprivation is a form of torture. There's a reason. It's because it does things to your brain. It turns your complexions inside out. It's just it's a very dangerous thing. And so when you couple it all together, and then now you're also potty training and you're doing all this, it becomes too much. It becomes too much of a focus on too many things. And so we get into this situation, and now this is leading into me going to this one night away, which again, when you have kids, there's never a good time to do anything. You just got to kind of choose, and you do your best, and then you get home the next day and you do your best to make up for it. You let them do something. You let your spouse go out and do something to even the playing field. It's tough though. And so we decided, unfortunately, after I had left that day, when I went to work yesterday to go to this baseball game later in the day, I was not going to be coming home. My wife had just had enough. She's getting really emotional, teary, and it's a whole lot of things that lead to that. It's the sleeplessness at night. It's the uncertainty about your child's development with things, not getting sleep, thinking to yourself, oh my God, he's only getting 8 hours of sleep. They say he needs 12 to 14 for brain development, for all these kinds of development. And I don't think this way, but she does. And that's okay. That's why we balance each other out. But it gets really hard. And so she had really reached her wit's end. She knew she was going to have another night now where I wasn't going to be home. So if he was going to wake up and run into the room, she was going to have to constantly nurse him back to sleep, nurture him back to sleep. And it was just going to become too much. So she told me to call the doctor and to ask the doctor's opinion about whether sleeping and potty training, or changing the sleep routine and then changing, doing potty training, were good ideas. And then I said, all right, I called. And then she said, make sure to patch me in when they call back. I'm like, oh, okay. So I patched her in, and they said, no, don't do both at the same time. And then we kept asking the question, like, oh, well, which one should we take away, one or the other? And they're like, no, just don't do both. It doesn't matter which one. And so obviously keep doing potty training, because if she's going to go back to school, we can always handle sleep at a later time. We're both around for sleep. But potty training, we're not both around. We would be relying on others to do this, and that's not a fair thing to rely on others to do. I have heard some people say they potty trained their kids by telling school that the kids were potty training, even if the parents weren't necessarily potty training, and they let the school do it because the school's with so many kids that maybe it works out. Maybe there's a peer pressure aspect to being potty trained. But our school in Montessori did not seem to be that in tune with being the proactive potty training pushers. So we did it. But here's the issue. By the time we found this out, I was not going to be coming home. So my wife, with me on FaceTime for part of it before I had to be like, I got to go, sorry. My wife had to take off the toddler bed part and put back on the fourth wall that we had removed from the crib. That's not an easy thing. You're using a little Allen wrench, you're putting all these screws. There's all these parts that have to be transferred from the one you moved in place to the one that used to be there. And it was a long time. And she was not happy with me. Her mom was not happy because you can hear her mom on the FaceTime saying, this is too much for you. This is too much for you. And I'm going, oh my goodness, can I just go away for a night? Can we just be cool with this? If I were watching him, I would try to just say everything's fine. Even if the place is on fire, it's fine. Have a good time. Because I don't want my time to be impeded. I'm only away for this one night. And I know people hear that. And if you're the female who's at home right now, you're going, hey, screw you, man. You're not going to have a good time. I'm not having a good time. My anxiety is overwhelming me. But it happens. And the one thing I did do, because this has just upended our routine quite a bit, having all this stuff happen with our son. We've had a kid who sleeps every night for like almost the entirety of his life. He sleeps through the night. He's been a great kid. We have a lot of predictability about his life. We have a lot of predictability about his naps. And it's in those nap times where you get so much done. It's so important. And when that starts to get taken away, when your night starts getting upended, it changes the dynamics of your day too much to where you're chasing it and you're not getting things done that you normally do. It gets very difficult. I've often thought with potty training that it's like having a 21-year-old kid, like your son, who had some drug problems, and you're detoxing with them at home. There's recriminations with the couple. You're always saying it's your fault. How did he do this? This is your nature. You're yelling at the kid, and in both instances, the point of potty training and in detox is keeping them clean. You're literally sitting around the house in the point of potty training. You're sitting around your house waiting for a toddler to piss and shit on your floor. It's like a fault line. It's like an earthquake. It's not a matter of if, but when. And so every moment you're watching them, every moment you're saying, oh, are you keeping your underwear dry? Oh, do you have to go? You're setting timers in your house, with your Amazon Alexa. It just becomes all encompassing. And so when you put that much effort into it and you make it like a boot camp and it just gets so intense, all of the stakes in the house get raised. You can't step aside to read. You can't step aside to look at your phone, to listen to a podcast. It's an all-encompassing thing. And when it doesn't work out, everyone starts getting mad. It's like your kid detoxing. I know the stakes are nowhere as high, obviously, but it triggered in my mind that that's almost what it feels like. It's weird. But I decided, our son, we have had a monitor in his room, right? One of those baby monitors with the little piece that you can walk around the house with and actually see through the video. And it's sort of a closed loop system between those things. Well, the signal on that had gotten really bad over the years, and we no longer could be around the house too far away from the source camera in his room. We couldn't be that far away from it. Otherwise, the screen would go blank. It'd been like that for months and months and months. And that was fine when he was in his crib because he really wasn't going anywhere. But ever since we moved to this open bed, before we closed it up again yesterday, and by the way, had a good night last night, ever since he had that open bed, he was getting out so much. And it became important for us again to see what he's doing in his room when we have the door closed or the gates closed, or we're in our room and we just want to keep tabs. We want to see if he's going to run out and try to catch him at the pass. And so, this monitor wasn't doing it, and I decided I want to have something where I could see it on my iPhone. And then it just hit me, what about using the Nest Cam? You always see these as security cameras, right? Indoor, outdoor Nest Cams. And I already have the Nest thermostat in my house, and I looked up Nest Cam, and I saw that there was a deal for them on Best Buy. So I believe it was Saturday or maybe Sunday, bought one online, pick up. My wife went to the Best Buy when she was out doing some of her, some chores, some errands. She picked it up. We brought it home and we hooked it up. And I got to tell you, it's amazing. It's great. I love being able to see things happening in my son's room from my phone, from my Nest app, the same place where I would go to change the temperature. And there I am with the app. And when my wife wasn't talking to me yesterday, I give her some credit. I'm not going to say it's all her fault, but she was in the house doing a lot. She's putting the crib back together. He didn't nap yesterday, so he's going to bed early. She's not giving me any updates because she doesn't want to give me that much. She doesn't want to tell me things are fine. She wants me to have to be unsure and uncertain that anything's going well, and hopefully it's impeding on my time. She's not doing that to be mean. It's just sometimes you do things aggressively, passive-aggressively, whatever the case is. And then it hit me. I said, oh my God, we got the Nest Cam. And with the Nest Cam, you could go back in time. So you could go back over the last day, maybe the last couple days, and you could just scroll through the history and you could see exactly what happened along the way. So now I'll be at work and I can see my son going down for his 1 p.m. nap. I could see all the times he was getting out of bed. I can see him sleeping peacefully. I could see yesterday when my wife didn't give me any updates, it hit me, I can look at the Nest Cam. And I looked at the Nest Cam and I saw that the crib was perfectly put together because she didn't give me that update that it was put together. It was perfectly put together. And then I saw that when I scrolled through the history, because I forgot he would go to bed earlier than normal because he hadn't napped, I saw her reading to him. And then when I got to more of the present time, I saw him peacefully asleep in his bed with the crib. So I have to tell you, this Nest Cam is awesome for this. I love being able to look into his room. I was at dinner. I could check on him all the time when you're in the house. And the other funny thing is I would get all these alerts, right? You can set it to notify you anytime there's movement. So this was crazy because the one night where he was getting up constantly, like every half hour and running into our room, you would hear a scream and then you would hear pitter-patter feet, and I would get all these notifications on my phone that there's movement, and I would look and it was like a jailbreak. You saw this little blonde night vision kid running out of the room in a still frame. It's hilarious, but it's a fantastic little thing to use, and I've really, really enjoyed it. So I'm going to keep this short today. I'm going to pick up on some other stories moving ahead, but I wanted to get in a nice little half-hour podcast here. Matt McQueenie, Mix Minus Podcast. Talk to you soon, folks.